With Legacy of Destruction legal to the TCG, many themes are receiving support, such as Yugioh, Melodious, even new decks such as Tenpai are popping up, and that is why players are having to prepare going into the post-Legacy of Destruction format. So today's video, we're going to be going over the top 10 cards to be picking up post-Legacy of Destruction. And now the first card on today's list is not a stranger to the side deck and can even be teched in some of the main decks, and that is Dimensional Barrier. And now Dimensional Barrier is a card we have mentioned in multiple videos here on the channel, and that is because with this format change as well as support coming out of Legacy of Destruction, many of the decks in today's format are actually heavily affected by the effects of Dimensional Barrier. Not only does it affect the Tenpai deck with its synchros, but it also hits decks like Branded, Voiceless Voice because it does hit Ritual, and even the up-and-coming Melodious deck. And that is because with it affecting the Pendulums, the Fusions, and again, even the Rituals in the Voiceless Voice, Dimensional Barrier is going to be that go-to card that can consistently hit many of the decks in the format. So for the players that have not equipped themselves with Dimensional Barrier up until this point, this is the final call, because this will definitely be one of the most powerful cards going into the post-Legacy of Destruction format. Now the second card on today's top 10 is a trap card that I do believe, once utilized in the metagame to its full potential, will be a card that many players do have as their go-to for disruption in the future. And that is none other than Destructive Daruma Karma Cannon. Now the Karma Cannon is actually a good representation of what a new age trap card should look like. Upon activation, it immediately interrupts the opponent by flipping all face-up monsters face down into defense position. But the part that makes it really unique is that after monsters have been flipped face down, if there are other monsters on the board that remain face up due to being unaffected by cards such as the Daruma, then the secondary effect of Daruma will kick in, forcing the player to remove their own monster from the field. So not only does it offer immediate interruption, but we actually do see that the Daruma Karma Cannon's secondary ability will remove monsters that are otherwise unaffected by the modern day board breakers. And then on top of that, decks like Labyrinth have full access to the Karma Cannon, and that is why I do believe it will be utilized heavily going into the future of Yu-Gi-Oh! And then on top of that, it's not a once per turn in any degree. So to the players out there that are looking for the tech in the post Legacy of Destruction age, Destructive Daruma Karma Cannon is up your alley and definitely one of the main cards on today's top 10. And now the third card on today's list is actually an extra deck card that many players were overlooking until the most recent ban list, and now that we see the combo lines, we know this is a card that we need to be picking up, and that is none other than Infernal Flame Banshee. So the Banshee being a generic rank 4 monster, it allows it to be incorporated in a bunch of decks, and then once you detach material, you're actually allowed to add any pyro monster from the deck to the hand. And then almost like it was coordinated by Konami, this has led to many new combo lines with the most recent ban list change, and that is because the Infernal Flame Banshee actually allows you to add Nemesis Flag from the deck to your hand pretty consistently. And then once you have Nemesis Flag, you can actually return a banished monster to the deck, summon out the flag, and then add another Nemesis monster from the deck to the hand. And honestly, this is where things get interesting, because with the unbanning of Colossus, you can actually then go into Corridor and then immediately go into the fusion Thunder Dragon Colossus. But with the Nemesis Flag, we can actually then search into the Arch Nemesis Protos or the Arch Nemesis Escados, which we've also mentioned previously on this channel. But on top of being able to go into combo lines to summon out some of the most disruptive boss monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh!, but it also has a very unique and powerful special ability. If this card is banished from your graveyard, you can actually then special summon it. And then not only that, but it will increase its attack by 100 for each of your banished monsters until the end phase. So this actually can allow you to go into many combo lines extending off the Banshee after you already add a card from the deck to the hand. So with all these powerful abilities, that is why Infernal Flame Banshee is number 3 on today's top 10. And again, this next card is another underrated extra deck monster that many players were not very interested in. Many players have been eyeballing Enigmaster Pack Bit for a good generic level 8 in the extra deck. Not only are the stats on it pretty decent, being 2900, 2500, but its ability is what matters most. If this card is synchro summoned or sent to the graveyard, you can target a monster in the graveyard or one face-up monster your opponent controls. Discard a card, place that monster in the owner's spell and trap zone as a continuous trap. And then during either player's turn, if this card is considered a continuous trap in your spell and trap zone, you can then special summon one face-up monster in your spell and trap zone. And then the interesting thing about this card is that in order to put it to the back row by its own effect, you actually only have to send it to the graveyard. So it offers some spot removal or being able to place itself to the back row to then start special summoning out your back row monsters. So Packbit offers a bit of interruption as well as summoning fuel. So Packbit being kind of one of those cards that's been under the radar, many players are looking at it right now to see what they can actually utilize out of it and its very unique ability into their combo line. And honestly, it would not surprise me if we see this card kind of break things a little bit going into the future of Yu-Gi-Oh! So definitely go out and get your copies sooner rather than later. And now number 5 on the list is a card we actually were discussing in the How to Beat Tenpai, and that is the Black Goat Laughs. Now, Black Goat Laughs is a very interesting trap card. Again, much like Dimensional Barrier, we do have a little foresight on what the opponent is playing. This card will definitely be your friend. So with modern Yu-Gi-Oh's combo lines kind of condensing down to very strict monsters and parts of the combo line that we know we need to interrupt, the Black Goat Laughs actually offers a very unique level of interruption with its ability that essentially states if you declare a monster card name, neither player can special summon that monster for the rest of the turn. So if you know what combo lines your opponent is about to be going into, especially if they are narrowed down to one singular monster at any point in that combo line, call the name with Black Goat Laughs and immediately watch the opponent scramble. They'll have to go out a combo if they can even combo off at all, and that alone is an amazing reason to be playing the Black Goat Laughs. But on top of that, like many modern trap cards, it actually offers a second very useful ability. By banishing the Black Goat Laughs from the graveyard, you can then actually declare a monster card name again, and then for the duration of that turn, monsters on the field with that name cannot activate their effects. So this offers a level of interruption on their basic combo line, and even if they defer into a level of interruption, you then have this secondary effect on your following turn to then allow you to have a level of interruption that lets you proceed with the following turn. So Black Goat Laughs will definitely be a card that many players are looking into in the post Legacy of Destruction format, and even in the OCG we've started seeing many players putting that into the side deck. Now the next card on this list, it's definitely more than one card, okay, but we're just going to use it as one because essentially we are going into the age where field spells are going to be very, very powerful. So the next cards we're talking about are Metaverse as well as Set Rotation. And now we're discussing these cards on top of some very unique field spell cards that a lot of players should be looking into right now. And again, that is because going into the post Legacy Destruction format, as well as once other packs release that have these really newly founded field spells, a lot of players need to be prepared. The hit of Summon Limit, we're seeing many players check out cards such as Summon Breaker, a newly popular field spell that during the main phase 1, if the turn player successfully conducts their third summon of a monster this turn, it becomes the end phase. And that is why Summon Breaker has actually been a tech card many players have been looking into and utilizing with things such as Metaverse. But maybe for the decks that want to have different levels of interruption, we've actually been seeing cards such as Extranet gain in popularity as well, because if a monster is special summoned from the extra deck, the opponent's actually draws one card. So if you summon from your extra deck, your opponent draws. If they summon, you draw. And a lot of players are activating this after they've conducted all the summons during their turn. And then if their opponent does proceed into any level of combo lines, then the player using the net will more than likely draw into levels of interruption, hand traps, all that nice stuff. Because as we know, new decks such as the Tenpai have actually been loading their decks with all sorts of hand traps. So if they're able to activate the extra net, it's almost like a makeshift max C in the TCG, allowing you to draw multiple times into all the interruption you need. And then on top of that, we've also been seeing cards such as Necro Valley in this field spell kind of meta game, locking players out of the graveyard altogether, and just again, amazing as a counterplay after you've already utilized your field spell for the turn. And then the last of the field spells we're discussing, especially relating to the set rotation, is Closed Forest. If you set this face down on the opponent's board with that set rotation, they will be unable to be using their field spells during their following turn. They have to flip the Closed Forest and then set over it, being unable to activate that field spell until the following turn. And that is why players utilizing cards like set rotation, like the Metaverse, can actually get behind cards like Closed Forest, Necro Valley, even the Summon Breaker or the Extranet. These are all cards players should be looking into going into the field spell meta. Cards like Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit definitely deserve the spot on the top 10, especially going into the post Legacy of Destruction format. Ghost Ogre offering that level of interruption as well as spot removal, blowing the opponent's field spells out of the water, not letting them add to the hand, is definitely a reason why we're seeing a huge increase in playability for Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. Not only in the OCG, but we're seeing it follow suit to the TCG, and that is why if you are not having it in your deck as of now, this is definitely a card to be considering. Number 8 on today's list is another card gaining in popularity, and that is Deck Lockdown. And now Deck Lockdown has probably been mentioned many times on the channel. This is a card you need to familiarize yourself with immediately. Not only does it block adding from the deck to the hand for 2 whole turns, but it also keeps players from special summoning from the deck itself. So not only is it a constant draw on the board, but it has that extra layer of interruption, keeping both players from summoning from the deck, and having both those very powerful effects on the board for 2 turn rotations is just too good, and is why many players are realizing Deck Lockdown is one of the newest techs to be going into this post Legacy of Destruction format. And now the second to last card on today's list is a very powerful field spell, and that is Way Where There's a Will. And now we've actually been seeing OCG utilize this card essentially as an extra pot of prosperity. And that's because during the main phase, the turn player can actually excavate cards from the top of their deck equal to the number of cards the opponent controls. They add 1 card from the excavated to the hand, then they take the rest and 1 card from their hand and put it on the bottom of the deck in any order. But Way Where There's a Will has an actual very powerful secondary ability. If you excavated 9 or more cards, you can then shuffle the opponent's entire field and graveyard into their deck. And that is why Way Where There's a Will is a very powerful kind of consistency adding card to many going second decks. But do keep in mind, it is for the turn player to activate. So if you keep this card on the field during your opponent's turn, they then can get utility out of it just as much. So what a lot of players are doing is activating it, adding some consistency, and then ridding it off the board if they're not able to OTK right after. So players looking into the post Legacy of Destruction format, definitely be on the lookout for Way Where There's a Will, because you will absolutely be seeing this card in the future meta game. And now we're going to be going over the last card on today's list before the notable mentions, and that is Metamorphosis. Now, Metamorphosis is a secret rare that's kind of been slept on ever since its release, and it's a little bit of the opposite of the all-powerful Metamorphosis. You take any fusion or synchro, and then you can summon any monster with the same level from the deck. And honestly, this is a very interesting card, because not only does the monster keep its effect, but to kind of balance it out, during the end of the turn, that monster will be returned to your hand. So if you want to add some hand traps from the deck to the hand, Metamorphosis might be up your alley, but I'm sure there will be many combo lines players utilize with Metamorphosis in the future, and that is why I do believe now is the time that players pick up this card, because I do believe its time will be very soon. And with decks like Runic floating around, having access from anything from level 2 to level 5, and then even a few level 9s, it is only a matter of time until Metamorphosis sees its time to shine. And that is why it is the last card we're going over on today's top 10. And now anyone who's been in this channel before knows we always have to have a few notable mentions. And now the first notable mention is a card we mentioned earlier in the list, and that is Spirit of Flames. being able to be added from the deck to the hand as a one-of by the Infernal Flame Banshee, and then if you link off the Banshee or somehow get it to the graveyard for part of a combo, you can then banish it with the Spirit of Flames, summon back the Banshee, and proceed with higher link climbing, maybe even go into something like the Promethean Princess. But the Spirit of Flames could definitely be a card that sees its time in a combo line in the future with the Banshee. Second card on the notable mentions is a card that's actually been seeing a lot of popularity in the field spell formats we're about to go into, and that is Ancient Fairy Dragon. Adding a level of consistency to that field spell space, being able to blow up a field spell, add any from the deck to the hand, and then even being able to get an extra special summon from your hand if you're going first. Ancient Fairy Dragon is seeing itself put into many combo lines in the current metagame, and that is why many players should be on the lookout to having at least a few copies for themselves in the future. And guys, that is the top 10 cards to be picking up post Legacy of Destruction. And if you got anything from this video or finding your way back to the channel, do smash that subscribe button. And if there's any cards you think players should be on the lookout for after this most recent format change and pack release, drop that in the comments below. Do keep an eye on the X profile. We're going to be giving a giveaway courtesy of Semi-Limited Podcast, but do be keeping an eye on the Vengeful Shadows X account. But most importantly, as always, stay safe, have a good night, and suck it, nerds.